The series begins on the Mexican border. We see a woman named Cora riding in a car with her assistant, Emilio. Suddenly, Cora orders Emilio to stop the car and tells him to get out and pretend the car has broken down and that he's fixing it. Meanwhile, Cora starts observing a nearby military camp. At that moment, a helicopter arrives and soldiers unload 9 bodies and take them inside the base. We learn that the army found these bodies in the forest, but no one knows who did that to them. Then the story jumps back 8 days earlier so we can see how it all started. At that time, there's a plane carrying 8 passengers, along with a flight attendant and the pilot. One of the passengers is nervous because she notices that the plane is flying over a huge forest, even though they were supposed to be flying over the ocean. She asks the flight attendant about the change in course, and the attendant reassures her, saying that pilots sometimes adjust the route because of weather conditions. But that isn't the truth. Inside the cockpit, the pilot is panicking because the navigation and communication systems suddenly failed. He tries to contact nearby control towers, but he can't reach anyone. And to make matters worse, he realizes the plane is running out of fuel. At that moment, he understands the plane is going down, so he sends a message to his girlfriend to say goodbye. The passengers are terrified as the plane descends, but the pilot manages to regain partial control and crash lands in the middle of the massive forest. Many parts of the plane are destroyed, and the only person who dies on impact is the flight attendant. The rest of the passengers are incredibly lucky and survive with only minor injuries. One of the passengers, Zach, runs to the cockpit to check on the pilot, and another passenger, Kevin, helps him. They find the pilot unconscious with a tree branch lodged in his body. When they realize he's still alive, Kevin quickly pulls the branch out. At the same time, another passenger named Carlos manages to open the plane door, and the engine catches fire. A passenger named Sonia grabs a fire extinguisher and begins putting out the flames, but she's shocked when she sees Carlos going back to grab his bag, even though he should have helped put out the fire first, since leaving it burning could have put everyone in danger. He tells her his bag contains important things, then walks away. Meanwhile, Zach and Kevin carry the pilot outside, but he's in critical condition and still unconscious. Kevin tries to call for help, only to discover there's no cell signal in the area. Zach then goes back inside to help Sonia move the flight attendant's body. Nearby, Carlos opens his bag and checks on something inside it. Not far from him, a passenger named Lisa sits beside her husband Travis, and she's hopeful that the government will send rescue teams soon. We then see another passenger, Dan, sitting with his wife, Amy. When Zach and Kevin carry out the flight attendant's body, Dan hugs Amy to block her view, but Amy notices a mysterious figure moving between the trees, watching them. Strangely, she stays quiet and doesn't say anything. Lisa then goes into the plane and finds Sonia checking the food and water supplies to see whether they'll last, especially since they have no idea how long they'll be stuck there. Lisa reassures her, saying she's sure a rescue team will reach them soon. After a while, the pilot regains consciousness, and everyone gathers around him to understand what happened. They're shocked when he tells them that the fuel suddenly ran out and all plane systems failed, meaning no one will be able to locate them. Zach asks Kevin to treat the pilot, and Kevin is surprised Zach knew he was a doctor. Zach explains that Kevin used a medical term earlier while helping carry the pilot, which made it obvious. Kevin admits he is a doctor, but he stopped practicing years ago and now works in medical supplies sales. Kevin says the pilot's injuries are severe and he needs surgery, and he can't treat him without proper medical equipment and medication. Zach suggests using the plane's first aid kit, but Kevin refuses, saying it won't be enough and that the best they can do is keep the pilot stable until rescue arrives. Zach realizes the situation is serious and that they may be stuck there for a long time, so he suggests they all introduce themselves. He goes first, saying he's an investigator who specializes in insurance fraud cases. Amy introduces herself and says she just married Dan a week ago and they're on their honeymoon. Lisa and Travis introduce themselves next. They own a hotel chain and were traveling on vacation. When it's Sonia's turn, she says she simply loves traveling and exploring, but when they ask about her job, she refuses to tell them. Then Carlos introduces himself, saying he's a wrestler and was on his way to compete in an international tournament. As for the pilot, they assume he's Mexican based on his appearance and accent. At that moment, they start feeling sorry for the pilot, so they pressure Kevin to at least try a simple procedure with whatever tools they have. have, hoping they can save his life. Kevin agrees, and everyone begins gathering all the supplies and equipment they can find on the plane. Travis even gives him his knife to use. Meanwhile, Amy is sitting inside the plane with Dan because she can't bear watching Kevin operate on the pilot. For the second time, she sees someone moving between the trees outside the window, but Dan tells her it's just her imagination. Kevin manages to treat the pilot's wounds and tells Zach and Sonia that his condition has stabilized. He says the pilot will regain consciousness during the night and should improve a little. That night, everyone falls asleep around the plane. Suddenly, a mysterious person appears, approaches the pilot, and kills him. The next morning, the passengers are shocked to discover the pilot is dead. They assume he died from complications after the procedure, or maybe from some kind of infection, since the jungle is full of insects. Kevin feels guilty, believing he's responsible for the pilot's death, but the others comfort him, telling him he did his best to save him. They decide to move the pilot's body and place it next to the flight attendant. While they're carrying him, the pilot's phone falls to the ground, unnoticed by everyone, except Dan. He quietly picks it up without anyone seeing him. But Amy sees him and asks what he plans to do with it. He tells her he took it hoping he could find a signal to call for help, then walks away so she can't watch him. He goes to the pilot's body, cuts off his finger to unlock the phone with the fingerprint, revealing his true intention. Dan wants to steal the pilot's money from his bank account, but he fails because the phone still requires a passcode. At that moment, Lisa senses something is wrong. She calls Travis over and tells him the pilot didn't die from complications like everyone thinks. She insists he was suffocated based on the color of his lips and the look on his face. She becomes convinced that someone among them killed him. While they're talking, she hears a sound coming from the trees behind her. Terrified, she asks Travis not to leave her side. Meanwhile, Zach, Kevin, and Carlos retrieve the GPS device from the plane. Carlos reveals he knows electronics when he quickly identifies the problem with it. He tells them he can fix it, but to get a proper signal, they'll need to go somewhere higher. They all agree to climb the mountain the next day, since night is approaching. At the same time, Travis tells Lisa that his heart medication is missing from his bag. She reassures him and says she'll go look for it. Inside the plane, Sonia is checking supplies when Zach walks in and notices she looks upset. She tells him that one of the passengers is extremely selfish and only thinks of themselves because someone stole food and drinks from the plane's refrigerator. Zach is surprised she isn't accusing him, but she tells him her instincts say he's a good person who wouldn't do something like that. Zach then asks her about the job she refused to mention earlier. She tells him she's a photojournalist specializing in refugee issues along border crossings. The next day, they all head into the forest to look for food and water. Kevin approaches a mushroom growing on the ground, but Sonia stops him just in time, telling him it's poisonous. Everyone is impressed by her knowledge of plants, and she explains she's been to many places like this jungle. Then Dan finds a small lake and gets so excited that he prepares to jump in, but Carlos stops him, warning that they don't know how deep it is or what creatures might be inside. There could even be dangerous fish. Zach throws his shoe into the water, and it suddenly gets pulled underwater and disappears. They realize the lake is full of aggressive fish. Suddenly, they hear gunshots coming from the forest and rush toward the sound. They find Travis, who has hunted an animal using his sniper rifle. This solves their food problem, at least temporarily. After that, they discuss how to collect water from the lake so they can drink. Sonia quickly gathers every tool she can find around them. Sonia begins collecting water from the lake, then distills it, managing to produce a decent amount of drinkable water. That night, everyone gathers around and cooks the animal Travis hunted. During dinner, Sonia asks Carlos why he's so attached to his bag. Carlos opens it in front of everyone and pulls out a wrestling mask, telling them he plans to wear it in his upcoming match. He says he refuses to give it up no matter what happens, because it represents his identity in front of his fans. After they eat, everyone goes to sleep. Travis appears to be in pain and unable to rest due to the severity of it. Meanwhile, a mysterious person quietly moves through the wreckage of the plane, heading toward a particular tree where they've hidden a satellite phone. The person retrieves it and contacts Cora, discussing something secret. The next morning, everyone wakes up to Lisa screaming. They discover that Travis has gone into cardiac arrest. Kevin tries everything he can to save him, but fails, and Travis dies. Everyone is devastated, assuming he was poisoned by the meat they ate the night before. But Lisa shocks them when she claims someone killed him. She tells them that whoever stole his heart medication yesterday is the same person who put poisonous mushrooms in his food. She continues, insisting the pilot was murdered as well, that he didn't die from complications like they believed. She says the killer strangled him. Lisa breaks down, warning that the murderer among them will take them out one by one. Everyone is stunned. Later, Sonia sits alone inside the plane, terrified. Zach comes in and tries to calm her, insisting that Travis simply ate too much meat, which caused food poisoning. But Sonia doesn't believe it. She's convinced someone deliberately deliberately poisoned him. She explains that Travis took Amy's meal after she refused to eat the night before, meaning the killer intended to target Amy first and then move on to the rest of them. Meanwhile, Dan is searching through the pilot's phone when Amy walks in and questions him. He tells her he managed to unlock the phone to try to understand what happened to the pilot. They then find the message the pilot sent to his girlfriend, Cora, the same woman the mysterious man contacted the night before. Dan and Amy show the message to the others, and everyone is shocked. In it, the pilot tells Cora that he's losing control of the plane and doesn't know if he'll survive. He mentions a mysterious person and warns that even if he manages to land safely, that person will kill him and all the passengers. He urges Cora to disappear quickly because her life is also in danger. This confirms to everyone that something is very wrong. They begin to wonder whether the crash was accidental or deliberately planned, especially since it makes no sense that the pilot wouldn't know how much fuel the plane had before takeoff. They start questioning the motive. Why would someone orchestrate something like this? Suspicion spreads among them, and they all begin doubting each other, though no one shows it openly. Amy later sits with Lisa to comfort her and tells her someone is watching them and orchestrating all of this. But Lisa doesn't believe her and says she suspects everyone present. Amy tries to defend herself and Dan, but Lisa asks her if she actually knows anything about her husband. Amy suddenly freezes, becoming nervous, realizing she really doesn't know enough about Dan. She tries to hide it, argues with Lisa, and storms off to find Dan. As she's walking through the trees, a strange figure appears, terrifying her. She runs, crashing straight into Dan. She tells him what she saw, but he reassures her it's just her imagination. They talk, and Dan gets upset when he realizes Amy believed Lisa. Amy tells him they got married too quickly before truly getting to know each other, and she worries he married her for her father's money. Their argument escalates until Amy becomes overwhelmed and asks Dan to bring her medication from the plane. When he leaves, she searches his jacket and is shocked to find multiple business cards with different professions listed under his name. At the same time, Carlos finally manages to repair the GPS device. He, Sonia, and Kevin head toward the mountain to place it somewhere high enough to get a signal. As they climb, Sonia slips and nearly falls off the cliff, but Kevin grabs her at the last second. Carlos quickly grabs Kevin to keep him from falling too. The device slips from Sonia's hands and lands on a rock nearby. She gathers her strength and manages to reach it, and Carlos pulls both her and Kevin up until they all reach the top of the mountain. Carlos installs the device and turns it on, and they're thrilled. Now there's hope that someone will locate them and rescue them. Meanwhile, Lisa decides to go hunting. Zach follows her to talk, but she immediately raises her gun at him, warning him not to get closer. Zach tells her he understands her situation and knows she doesn't trust anyone. He assures her he had nothing to do with her husband's death, but Lisa tells him she won't believe anything she hears. Still, she accepts reality and goes ahead with hunting to provide food. She tells him she hopes this ordeal ends soon. Back to Amy, who is alone in the forest holding Dan's business cards, unable to comprehend that he may have been deceiving her. When Dan arrives, she confronts him. Dan admits he used to impersonate employees in various places in order to make money because he was poor and had a difficult life. Amy tells him that proves he married her for her father's money. Dan tells her that at first that was true, but once he got to know her, he genuinely fell in love with her and couldn't live without her. By the end of the day, Carlos, Kevin, and Sonia return and tell the others that they successfully set up the device on the mountain, so rescue teams should eventually detect their location. That night, everyone sleeps except Carlos, who stays awake training to maintain his physical fitness. Suddenly, Carlos senses someone behind him. When he turns, he's shocked to see someone wearing his wrestling mask. Before he can react, the masked figure stabs him, killing him. The next morning, the group realizes Carlos is missing. They assume he left the forest to search for a way out, especially since he mentioned that idea the night before. The only one who disagrees is Lisa. She's convinced Carlos is the killer's latest victim and that they'll find his body somewhere nearby. Zach decides they should search for him, so they split into groups and explore the forest. After some time, they all return empty-handed. Kevin then expresses concern that no rescue team has arrived yet, meaning the device must not be working and the signal never reached anyone. We see that he's right. The device malfunctioned on the mountain. Kevin decides to take Sonia and check the device. While walking, Sonia notices a flock of crows circling one area. She guesses there's a body there, and they're horrified when they find Carlos lying dead on the ground. At the same time, Amy is sitting alone when she hears someone calling her from deep in the forest. She grabs a stick and follows the voice. She suddenly sees the mysterious figure that has appeared to her before. Terrified, she approaches and stabs him with the stick, only to snap out of her hallucination and discover she has stabbed Dan by mistake. Later, Sonia and Kevin return to the crash site, and Zach is there trying to calm Sonia, who is shaken after seeing Carlos's corpse. Kevin treats Dan's wound and manages to stop the bleeding. At that moment, everyone begins suspecting Amy, believing she tried to kill Dan. But Dan defends her, saying she's not a murderer. She suffers from psychological trauma and hallucinations caused by witnessing a shooting when she was a child. He tells them she's been in therapy for a long time, and the stress of their situation has triggered her condition. He insists she has nothing to do with the murders. While treating Dan, Kevin notices a specific tattoo on his back, but remains silent. Zach decides to take Sonia and Kevin to examine Carlos's body. There, Kevin tells them that the weapon used to stab Carlos was Travis's knife. Sonia admits that until recently, she didn't believe there was a killer among them and tried to convince herself the pilot's and Travis's deaths were accidents. But after seeing Carlos, she's certain someone is murdering them. Zach agrees, but he still wants to understand the motive. Why would someone want them dead? Meanwhile, elsewhere, we see Claire, Zach's wife, arriving at the headquarters of the company that owns the plane, accompanied by an investigator from the Civil Aviation Authority. They go in to meet Cora, and we learn that Cora is actually the owner of the plane that crashed in the jungle. Claire accuses Cora of negligence and tries to get her to explain what really happened on the plane. Cora responds coldly, saying she has no idea what happened and that she's already contacting all government agencies to gather information. She refuses to say anything more and tells Claire and the investigator to leave because she's busy. This makes Claire suspicious. She's convinced Cora knows something and is hiding it, but she's forced to leave since she can't do anything about it for now. Back in the jungle, Kevin confronts Dan about the tattoo he saw on his back. He tells him that tattoo is only given to prisoners, meaning Dan has a criminal past and has been in jail. Dan loses his temper because Kevin is implying he's the killer, and the two start fighting. Lisa steps in and breaks it up, telling them fighting won't solve anything. She also reveals that someone stole all the ammo for her rifle. She only has one bullet left. Lisa believes the thief wants to stop them from hunting, which means they'll soon run out of food and starve one by one. Dan calms down and admits he was involved in impersonating a government employee, which is why he was prosecuted and sent to prison. The others believe him, and Lisa walks away into the forest. Sonia follows her to talk about the stolen ammunition. Lisa surprises her by saying she suspects Zach. She claims she saw him sneaking into the forest alone. She followed him secretly and discovered he had hidden something in a specific spot. That night, a violent storm hits, forcing everyone to take shelter inside the plane. Sonia notices rainwater leaking inside, so they start patching the openings. Suddenly, a large stash of illegal drugs falls out from inside the plane's structure. Everyone is shocked, realizing someone wants them dead because of this shipment. Sonia concludes that the airline was being used as a cover for drug trafficking. While they're talking, Amy looks out the window and sees the mysterious figure moving outside. She rushes out after him. The others notice she's gone and begin searching for her. Amy runs through the forest until she finally sees someone standing in front of her. And this time, it's not a hallucination. The person is real and holding the same knife used to kill Carlos. He prepares to attack Amy. Suddenly, Lisa appears and points her rifle at him, ordering Amy to go call the others. Then she tells the man to drop the knife and get on his knees. He obeys and throws the knife, but he suddenly moves, disappears from her sight, and then ambushes her from behind, strangling her to death. The next morning, they gather around Lisa's body, realizing she was right about there being a killer among them. At that moment, Sonia shocks everyone by accusing Zach. She tells them Lisa had told her she saw Zach hiding something in the forest. Sonia then went to the location Lisa described and found the stolen ammunition, along with Zach's handgun, and even worse, a satellite phone hidden among his belongings. To her, this proves Zach had been deceiving them and committed all the murders. Zach finally speaks up, revealing he works as an undercover investigator in the narcotics division and had information that the airline was smuggling drugs. That's why he took the flight in the first place. He insists he knows nothing about the ammo or the satellite phone and says someone planted them among his belongings to frame him. Zach asks Sonia to take out his wallet so they can check his police ID. She hands it to Kevin, who searches through it but finds no badge. Zach claims someone must have stolen it to strengthen the accusation against him. No one believes him. They demand he give them the phone's passcode so they can contact authorities. Zach tells them the phone isn't his, so he doesn't know the password. Dan loses his temper, punches Zach, and knocks him out. After some time, Zach regains consciousness and finds himself tied to a tree. Sonia approaches him and asks again for the phone's password. Zach insists he doesn't know anything about the phone and begs her to trust him, telling her that if he wanted to kill them, he could have used the gun already. He also tells her that someone saw him going into the forest and used that opportunity to plant the ammunition and the phone and steal his ID in order to frame him. But Sonia doesn't believe him. She leaves him tied up and returns to the others. Dan suggests they torture Zach until he confesses, and they draw lots to decide who will do it. The lot falls on Kevin, who is extremely nervous and uncomfortable with the idea. But Dan convinces him that this is the only way to make Zach talk. Sonia then decides to take Dan and Amy up the mountain to check why the GPS device isn't working. Meanwhile, Kevin goes to Zach and begins beating and torturing him, demanding the phone's passcode. Despite the pain, Zach continues to deny knowing anything. On the other side, Sonia and the others reach the GPS unit and discover it really is malfunctioning. Sonia manages to fix it. Back in the city, Claire is at the Civil Aviation Office, trying to get authorization to search for Zach. The director tells her that Mexican authorities received a signal from Zach's plane's GPS device. They were able to locate the signal coming from a large jungle near the border, and search operations for the plane and its passengers are being prepared. That night, Zach is unconscious from the torture. When he wakes up, he's shocked to see someone approaching him holding a sharp object. It turns out to be Sonia. She came to help him escape, telling him she can't be sure he's the killer. Zach realizes she believes he's innocent, but doesn't want the others to know. He asks her to work with him to uncover the truth. However, Sonia refuses. She tells him she's freeing him so he can go get help, and that this is the only way she'll be able to trust him. She cuts him loose, and Zach escapes. The next morning, Kevin is shocked to find Zach gone. Dan and Amy panic, afraid Zach is watching them and will attack. Dan decides they should split from Sonia and Kevin. He says he has the rifle and can protect himself and Amy, and hopes the GPS signal reached authorities so rescue teams will arrive soon. After Dan and Amy leave, Kevin refuses to stay with Sonia unless she gives him Zach's gun. Sonia refuses, and Kevin tells her they can't stay together if they don't trust each other. He leaves on his own. After some time, Dan and Amy sit together, and Dan tries to reassure her that rescue teams are coming and they'll soon return to civilization. Sonia continues walking alone through the jungle. In another area, Zach is also searching for a way out. Suddenly, a scream echoes through the forest. Amy's voice. Both Sonia and Zach hear it and sprint toward the sound, arriving at the same time. They're horrified to find Dan and Amy dead on the ground, stabbed by the killer. Kevin arrives moments later and is stunned by the scene. Sonia immediately raises the gun at both Zach and Kevin, believing one of them murdered Dan and Amy. Kevin quickly grabs Dan's rifle, aims it at Sonia, and orders her to lower her weapon. He tells her he knows she helped Zach escape, and that means the two of them killed Dan and Amy. Sonia admits she helped Zach, but only because she believes he's not the murderer. She denies killing them and accuses Kevin instead. Zach steps in and tells them to lower their weapons, saying this isn't the time to turn on each other. He insists they should stay united until rescue arrives. At that moment, they all hear a helicopter flying overhead, but the aircraft is too high, and because of clouds and dense trees, the pilot can't see them. The helicopter turns back toward base due to low fuel. Zach suggests they climb the mountain and light a fire so the helicopter can locate them when it returns. Sonia refuses to move until Kevin gets rid of his gun. Kevin throws the rifle into a nearby lake to reassure her. However, Kevin then refuses to go with them. He says he doesn't trust them and fears they might kill him. He chooses to stay near the plane and wait for the rescue team. Sonia and Zach leave him behind and begin climbing the mountain alone. Meanwhile, Claire travels to Mexico, but she's detained at the airport and questioned about the reason for her visit. At first, she denies she's there to look for her husband and tells the officer she's just a tourist. The officer doesn't believe her and tells her he will deny her entry. Claire finally breaks down and admits the truth. The officer sympathizes with her and decides to help. He tells her he'll contact the proper authorities, and if he receives any information, he'll allow her to go check on her husband herself. Back in the jungle, Sonia and Zach are on their way to the mountain summit, but stop to rest. Suddenly, they hear a gunshot. Since Kevin threw the rifle into the water, it means someone else must have a weapon. Worried about Kevin, they rush back. When they arrive, they find Kevin lying next to the lake, shot in the back. His face is submerged in the water, and the fish are eating him. Zach pulls the body back and discovers that the fish have completely devoured his face. His features are gone. Sonia and Zach realize someone has been watching them from the beginning and is eliminating them one by one. With night approaching, they decide to sleep inside the plane and lock the door. The mysterious killer appears, retrieves the satellite phone, and calls Cora. He makes an arrangement with her, and she tells him she will do exactly as he says. The next day, Zach and Sonia reach the summit, but the area is covered in dense clouds. They decide to rest and then gather wood to make a signal fire. Zach is injured, so Sonia goes to collect the wood alone. Zach watches her until she disappears into the fog. He calls out, asking her to keep talking. Sonia tells him she feels movement nearby. Suddenly, the killer appears behind her, strikes her hard, and knocks her unconscious. Zach hears her fall and becomes alarmed. The masked killer emerges in front of him, holding the gun he took from Sonia. Zach asks him why he's doing this, why he wants them dead. The killer doesn't respond and shoots him. Zach falls off the edge of the mountain. The killer then returns to Sonia, who has regained consciousness. She begs him to remove the mask so she can see who he is. He complies and takes it off, then shoots her as well, killing her. The next day, the rescue team reaches the crash site. They search the area until they find the bodies. They're shocked to see the corpses neatly arranged together, and even more disturbed when they count 9 bodies, although there were 10 passengers on the plane. That means 1 passenger is missing. At Claire's hotel, the airport officer arrives and tells her to get ready. She will be taken to the military camp. He informs her that the rescue teams found 9 bodies and are still searching for the missing passenger. They still haven't identified the corpses. At the camp, the commander contacts a forensic doctor and orders her to examine the bodies. We return to the opening scene. Soldiers placing the bodies inside the camp morgue. The pilot and the rescue leader inform the commander that they're heading back into the jungle to search for the missing passenger. The commander approves. Meanwhile, the forensic doctor is on her way to the camp when Cora stops her on the road, pretending to need help. As the doctor approaches, Cora shoots her and kills her. At the same time, inside the morgue, someone among the bodies begins to move. A hand reaches out, grabs a knife, and cuts open the body bag. It's Kevin. We learn that he was behind everything from the very beginning. Kevin quietly moves among the corpses, hiding. Back to Cora, who arrives at the camp and speaks with the commander. She insists she needs to examine the bodies immediately because she doesn't have much time. The commander sends a soldier with her to the morgue. As soon as they enter, Kevin attacks the soldier, knocking him unconscious. We discover that Cora is Kevin's girlfriend, and she is stunned to see that Kevin hid the drugs inside the bodies. They find fuel inside the morgue, set the place on fire, take the drugs, and escape. Meanwhile, Claire arrives at the camp, shows her security clearance, and tells the commander she's there to identify her husband, one of the passengers. The commander begins leading her toward the morgue, when suddenly, the morgue explodes right in front of them. At that same moment, Kevin and Cora drive away, taking advantage of the chaos and successfully escape the military camp. Back in the jungle, we discover that Zach is still alive. When he hears the rescue helicopter flying overhead, he becomes overjoyed. He pulls out his sunglasses and angles them toward the sun, creating a reflection so the pilot can spot him. The rescue pilot and team notice Zach's signal. The next day, Zach is in the hospital after being rescued, and his wife is overjoyed that he survived. Even though he's still injured, Zach explains everything to the aviation authorities. He tells them Kevin's body disappeared from the morgue, confirming Kevin orchestrated the drug smuggling plan from the beginning. Zach begins sharing everything he knows about the shipment and urges them to rush to the airport because Kevin will take the drugs and board another plane to deliver them to the dealer he works for. On the way to the airport, Zach recalls everything that happened after the crash. He reveals that the pilot was working with Kevin in the drug smuggling operation. When the pilot made a mistake and the plane went down in the jungle, Kevin killed him first. Then Kevin began eliminating the passengers one by one. The fear and paranoia among them made them easy targets. While killing them, Kevin sabotaged the GPS device so the rescue teams wouldn't find them, giving him more time to complete his plan. He contacted Cora via the satellite phone to coordinate what she needed to do. When Kevin stayed alone in the jungle with Zach and Sonia, he purposely refused to climb the mountain with them. He secretly kept one rifle bullet and threw it into the river, creating a gunshot sound so Zach and Sonia would believe someone else was armed. Kevin then removed his clothes and dressed Dan's corpse in them. He staged the body to look like it had been shot in the back, then pushed Dan's face into the lake so the fish would eat it, making identification impossible. Zach and Sonia fell for it and believed Kevin was dead. The final phase of Kevin's plan was executed flawlessly. He hid the drugs inside the corpses of the passengers, used Travis's stolen heart medication, and took a large dose so he would lose consciousness, then placed himself among the bodies. When the rescue team arrived, they unknowingly transported him with the drugs out of the jungle. Kevin had the army move the contraband for him. Kevin is now at home preparing breakfast for Cora. happily recounting everything he did after the crash. Cora is impressed by his intelligence and cunning. Kevin then gets ready to leave for the airport. But before he leaves, Cora tells him she feels very sick. Kevin casually tells her he put poisonous mushrooms in her food. He then places the pilot's satellite phone in front of her and reveals her punishment. She had been cheating on him with the pilot. He leaves her to die and rushes to the airport. However, just as he boards the plane and begins taxiing, he notices Zach, still alive, running toward the aircraft. Kevin takes off before Zach can reach him, but Zach fires at the plane, hoping to damage it and stop Kevin. Kevin looks at the drug shipment and smiles, believing his plan is still perfect. But then he notices fuel leaking. Zach's shot hit the fuel tank. Kevin's smile fades as panic replaces it. The plane loses control and crashes back into the very same jungle where the first plane went down. The series ends.